Long-term renting is cheaper than owning a home. Renters save $540 on average in California over a 30-year period.
Yeah, but have you seen the homes that are listed for $1 million in Cali,
I get
bro?
You have individuals that just buy a one-time, like a one family, and that's their dream home.
Right.
They're not taking money to invest in another property.
Bro, the other day, one of my friends is telling me that he's paying $2,800 for a studio. That's like 600 square feet.
He says, I would never buy a house. That's the stupidest shit that you could do, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of Instagram reels that he does.
But he just ended up buying one recently.
But hold on.
I think that the way our country is right now, you have a lot more people making more money than what was made in the past, right?
We'll pick it all up, bro. Like, well, how many do you have? 500? All right. And I'll give you 50 cents instead of $1 for five. But I'm going to take them all. Yo, yo, yo. ¿Qué es lo que mi gente?
We are back. Back from a little break, Jay.
There was a big break.
Tyrese Halliburton. That was his name.
Halliburton sucks.
Oh, wow.
I had to ask ChatGPT, by the way.
We were trying to say
how do we start
we were trying to say who's the worst player on the Pacers, and it was Halliburton, right?
Yeah.
Whack ass.
Anyway, watch when he comes in, when he hears this episode.
Oh, yeah.
I come to the studio, be like, yo, what you said about me?
Yo,
last
what's
time,
up,
boy?
fellas? We've been away for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan keeps taking
or a little
trips.
more. Took a little hiatus. But we're back.
Yes, we are.
And we're back with a good one too.
As always.
I'm gonna ask you guys some questions. Now, let's. You guys ready to?
Is that the one that we used to do in the basement, right?
You ready to go?
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. So
I'll kill Oprah.
listen to these.
I thought we were doing that.
Oh,
no, we're not. That's a warm up.
Jesus.
Off air. All right. So check this out, and you know what I'm talking about when I ask. Long-term renting is currently cheaper than home ownership in 46 of the 97 major cities in the United States, or of 97 major cities in the United States. 69% of renters believe that renting is the best financial decision for them right now. Renters will spend an average of $1.26 million over the course of 30 years, while homeowners will spend $1.3 million. Right?
Say it again.
1.6 renting as opposed to
1.26 as opposed to 1.3.
Pero no hay gran diferencia. It's right
Bueno,
there.
pero it's not, pero there's a difference.
I mean, those are averages.
Yeah,
too,
but
because at the end of the day, depending on the city that you're.
But here's the one that
those
caught my
numbers may-
attention, because whenever somebody tells me, "Yo, what's better, renting or buying?" I'd be like, "Are you stupid? Like buying, because equity and all this stuff, right?" But then these guys went and did the actual research, and they're not.
Yeah,
like,
proved you wrong.
they're not like Dominicans like us. Like what we do, would be like, "Yeah, of course, bro. What are you talking about?" You know.
I think things to consider in that.
And then I'll give you the banger.
Are they taking into account, let's say, those...
I'll give you the parameters of the research.
Okay.
After this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Owners come out ahead in at least 7 major cities in California. Long-term renting. So California is specific. Long-term renting is cheaper than owning a home. Renters save $540 on average in California over a 30-year period.
Yeah, but have you seen the homes that are listed for $1 million in Cali,
I get
bro?
it. I get
They
it.
look like crack houses.
And then it says in at least 51 U.S. cities, on average, owners saved, and this is again over the course of 30 years, $175,811. All right. And the parameters here, right, of the study, right, they went into it because it's not like the whole country, but they identified 97 major cities throughout the country, and then that was their scope. So 97 major cities. So you want to assume that
the main cities, Austin,
yeah. You want to assume, and we could probably post a link to this article. Let me shout them out. Today's homeowner.com, just in case people. But let's dig in. I haven't read the whole thing.
So the question I was gonna ask you, because you have individuals that just buy a one family, and that's their dream home.
Right.
They're not taking money to invest in another property,
right,
or to kind of get that real estate going. Because then it's like, okay,
that's what I think that's basically the whole point. Right.
Exactly.
Like if you're gonna just buy it to live, and that's it, like then the numbers are there. You're in California, you're saving an average of $900,000 over the course of the 30 years, versus let me just rent. But then the factors that they don't consider?
Did it specify the age, like the age
group?
limit, like the age?
It didn't.
Group?
I can look.
Yeah,
I could look through.
That'll be interesting to see because I think that
no, because at the end of the age doesn't matter. It's just over. Like if today you're deciding to buy or rent, they're telling you over the next 30 years, which is the typical mortgage, right? You'll save X amount as a when renting as opposed to buying. But to Jelly's point,
what was the amount again?
in California, $900,000.
That's a lot of money.
And then in at least 51 U.S. cities, on average, owners saved $175,000, almost $176,000 over. So still a considerable amount of money.
That's over the course of how many years?
30 years.
30 years. Comparing it to
like a 30-year mortgage.
Mhm.
I mean,
but bro, the low hanging fruit, and we'll dig in a little bit better. But you hit it. Equity, right? Being the major, right? Are you taking equity out of your home to reinvest, or are you selling and then buying again for also equity, right? And then, statistics show very rarely will your real estate value drop, right? So
I think on average, I think the real estate market pretty much outperforms the S&P 500 for about 2 to 3% per year, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
They say the S&P 500 for the most part
7%,
6 to 7%.
And where you got that from?
Bro, I don't know, but
we're gonna fact check it.
No, I'm gonna check, but this is
fact check
that
yourself.
And this is crazy because I always remember that percentage because with life insurance, they always say, whole life is good because you could average 4% over the course of 10, 15 years, which is gonna outperform. Sometimes based on where the market is at, it may outperform the S&P, but then real estate happens to double. If you buy a home, let's say for $100,000, after 20 years, that home is gonna double in pricing. Now it's worth 200, and after another 10 to 15 more years, it would double. So it's kind of like flipped twice based on the trends.
Right.
So I can see why in some cities it's definitely better to rent because the real estate, the asset is so expensive, right? That you can probably utilize and use some of your savings and allocate it into a different type of investment. Like main cities, like probably like I don't know, Los Angeles, Austin, Miami. Miami has gotten an influx of people. The migration actually. What they did is they brought it up. The market increased, so it becomes not as affordable as it once was. Right? Like look at New York. Yeah, to buy it. So like look in New York, for instance. Right? Like it's crazy. You could see a rundown brownstone going for like $2 million. And you might have to throw another 500 to 700,000 in rental, right?
Oh, so dude, even more.
Who can afford that? And then again, when you're looking at the rents are, bro. The other day, one of my friends is telling me that he's paying $2,800 for a studio. That's like 600 square feet.
And that's where you have corporations that have big pockets.
So here and
so it's like, which one is better? Is it
go ahead, because I want to open up that door.
Yeah, so that's where you have the corporations have the big pockets that say, you know what, we're gonna buy these single family homes. And we're just going to rent because now they have the deeper pockets. We can't compete. We can't say, look at this market. You try to go buy a home now and every house is going way more than the asking price.
I love the baseball, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's going to end up.
You're 100% right. But then here's where then the conspiracy theorist in me wakes up. Grant Cardone, for example, right? He says, I would never buy a house. That's the stupidest shit that you could do, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of Instagram reels that he does.
But he just ended up buying one recently.
But hold on. But then, what does he do, right? He runs these REITs, right? Like real estate funds, right? That buy property and rent them. So what is to his convenience, right? Like, he makes money when people decide to rent over buying.
Yeah.
Right? Like we mentioned BlackRock now and a couple of these major funds who are literally gobbling up square miles of single family homes. And what do you see in the news? Oh, it's better now. Bro, I've never in my life
someone like you and me
in my 20 years of living. In my 22 years of living, I've never heard.
Liar.
Jay's looking at me. He doesn't even know. He was like, it was like Zach Galifianakis in the number. He was calculating.
I was like, yo, but that is so true.
Like the mapping there, guys.
But since I could remember and it's part of the whole fabric of this country, right? Like the American dream, you buy your house, right? Like that's the whole thing. how is the narrative changing in 1 year? Like in the last year, I've never heard or seen more articles talking about renting versus buying and how it's better to rent than to buy. And then if you say, wait, big corps
Who's pushing that?
are buying single family homes.
Is that a government agenda that are trying to condition us to
they're
become?
trying to
Oh,
send it
the
down
conspiracy
Like, I'm
theorists.
just saying, right?
We'll tell the producer to add like a little music when we're thinking conspiracy, like
the light bulb switch.
like I don't know, some one of those. But bro, isn't that funny?
It's crazy how a lot of people are going from
New York Post right here just says that lawmakers want to ban Wall Street from buying single family homes. I wonder what's that.
I think, if I'm not mistaken,
so-
I think that they just passed a law against BlackRock or another organization as well that prohibited them from purchasing, like real estate as a bundle for like one families and single families and multifamilies.
I would have to assume that there are two parties here against each other, right? Because the
Yes.
banks want you to buy
Mm-hmm.
because they want to make interest,
Yeah.
right? But then these guys want you to rent, right? And they're probably getting loans from the banks, but based on volume, I would assume
Based on volume,
that regular mortgages are the bread and butter, right? Like,
Yeah.
So, it just begs the question, and again, conspiracy theorist music
And
cue,
to
right?
that fact, hold on, before you go there, those
conspiracy?
those independent or let's say corporations are not gonna get a loan at the rate that me and you get it.
Exactly.
Well,
You know?
right.
So
Right.
It sounds like somebody got their
think
hands on the
about it.
cookie
Think
jar.
about it. It's like
No, I'm thinking about it. What's the
Wasn't
music
our
of
economy
of
also-
that movie that like woo?
Damn, we need our specialist right here. He missed a good one.
Yeah, Reyes,
but-
bro. Maybe we gotta pick this one up on
Can you
online.
actually dial him in real quick? Because
Nah,
I like
I
to
don't know what he's doing. I don't know
Wasn't
what
our
he's doing.
economy like somewhat depending on mortgage-backed securities?
Look,
And by like taking away that many amount of mortgages away from like the individuals,
I just
like
think
ourselves, and going to corporations, it's a lose-lose situation. Like,
I don't
who
know if
wins?
it's a lose-lose situation because that's what I'm saying. Maybe the agenda changed, right? Maybe people are making money in a
and that's
different
the
way,
thing now,
right?
that-
So
Yeah.
I think that the way our country is right now, you have a lot more people making more money than what was made in the past, right? And you have generations that are
you would
over time.
inflation,
No, correct.
right? Like supposedly you're making, even if you're making more, you're really making less because of cost of living, etc.
Yeah, but more people have that goal in mind, like, now I want my home. I want instead of for rent, which in the past, yes, you have people that own homes, but not as much as right now. Because people, I got a good job, and yes, inflation's high, but I want to set up my kids to have a
I
own
think
backyard.
that's more
I
like
think that's more education though.
No, and I think that's more within the communities we grew up in. So
Correct.
you're speaking in it from like your perspective
But that
or
also
my
has to-
perspective.
but then-
That also has to
but
do with
then-
financial education for you to understand the type of investment that you're making, like right? Because you want
Yeah,
to pass a
but-
tangible asset
But
down to
if
your,
you're
to your
competing
family or
now,
something.
if you're competing now with corporations when you're trying to buy a single family home, where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
So I mean, look, they but then you also have cities, right? Incentivizing.
Mm.
Maybe I should coin
Hey.
that. Incentivizing people to. It's like the whole Italy thing from a few years ago.
Yeah.
Buy a house for $1, right? But then that's also to get people to stimulate the economies in these
Mhm.
either urban cities that are really
Will you do that?
dangerous.
Buy a house for
Here's the
$1?
thing. Some
go
of
to
them have
Baltimore for
rules.
that, bro.
Some of them have rules, right? Like Italy, you have to
repair
live
it.
there.
Some of them you have to.
But you also
repair
have to
over
I
use
think
it-
most of them you have to.
You have to
repair.
use a local contractors as well.
Right,
You have a specific
there are
time
rules.
frame.
But the biggest rule I think is you have to live there, right? So you can't look at it from an investor's point of view.
Mhm.
In some cases, there are cases where you can look at them as an investor, but they have different windows.
Mhm.
Meaning, like the first 30 days is for individual homeowners, like owner occupied, right? And then the next round will be for investors, and then the investors have to meet certain criteria, etc. Like what you said, you have to hire people from the city or from this area, whatever.
Mhm.
You have to buy materials from here, whatever the case is, because it's just like an incentive program. I think those programs, I think that they're great. I think I would do it from an investor's point of view, but I wouldn't see myself going to like the hood and they're trying to get people in like this hood that people moved out of because it was so dangerous.
I think that
think
some of the
it's-
premise of particular Italy was that they allow you to buy a house for €1, right? As long as you're able to revitalize it within a specific time. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I'm sure that there were
They
parameters.
have
but it
different-
also was a way of trying to
it's
attract,
pretty smart.
trying to attract younger individuals to
go back into town.
Dude, pay
go
taxes.
back into town. Not only that, it's because their population was so old
Correct.
that it was
Yeah.
dying.
It was
that
because the
they need to
population was
incentivize
old,
the economy,
and the economy,
yeah,
people that are old don't work.
exactly.
You're not
They're
paying
retired.
taxes, right?
Mhm.
So like it's all of that, right?
Yeah.
It's a very smart
It
plan.
is.
So that's the other side of the coin, right? Like you have cities who are saying, "Hey, come buy."
Mhm.
But I feel like because of that issue
Mhm.
or that social situation,
Mhm.
these big investors saw an opportunity, and
Yeah.
and they went to these local governments and said, "Hey,
There's something to be
we'll
done
pick
here.
it all up, bro. Like, well, how many do you have? 500? All right. And I'll give you 50 cents instead of $1 for 5. But I'm gonna take them all,
Yeah.
and I'll invest.
And you know
certain money.
what makes it even tougher? I know in one of the prior podcasts that we had, we were talking about the issues of inventory,
Right.
right? So
It's
that's
supply.
But this is why also.
Yeah. Part of the issue of the inventory was because it was like new construction too. It's like there was I think it's like there was already
yeah, it could be that, or people not selling their house at, because think about it, how many people didn't
There was
refinance?
a bunch of shit. Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
refinance while the COVID era and got that low interest rate. Now they're
Right.
thinking about making that move.
like
to-
it's just crazy how you start looking at the whole cycle of real estate, right? Like whether it comes from new construction or just flipping a home or just basically looking to buy a single family. I think that like whether it's right to buy or whether it's right to rent, a lot of depends into the individual and where you're
Like,
currently
that's always gonna
located
be. That's
and
always
what
gonna be
are
the
you
case.
looking for, right? Because if you're a young professional, like let's say, you're a single guy and you're making
Buy.
It
You ask me
depends.
anytime, I'll be like, buy.
Yeah, but it depends because
Buy.
what if I don't want to live in a single?
Buy.
I don't want to live in the burbs. I
Buy.
want to listen.
Buy in the city.
I don't want, but this is the
See?
thing. But let me tell you, why would I go and spend let's look at real case scenarios, right? Long Island City or Williamsburg.
Buy.
I would not buy a condo.
Why not?
Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna probably have a mortgage of $1.5 to $2 million. Okay. And I'm gonna have to pay $10,000 when I could just rent the place for like $4,000 or $5,000.
And then you're throwing $4,000 or $5,000
and I don't have
away.
a major commitment of 30 years. I might just be I might be one of the persons.
You could
Listen,
always
about-
sell.
but this is
Think about the
I
closing
understand,
costs
but you
as well.
lose.
There's a
I
lot-
get
there's
it.
a lot
No,
of
no, no.
things.
I get
If
it.
you-
It
if
is
you
more
try to-
Like, if it-
expensive.
If
if
you're holding
if it's
the
short
asset
term-
long term, you're
Yeah.
winning. But if you're holding the asset short term,
Right.
you're not
If
gonna.
it's short
That's
term,
you're
definitely a
losing.
question to consider.
That's what I'm
Always.
saying. It's-
I'm not
So that's
saying
why
for
you
the
can't say buy.
individual.
no.
and
I'll
the
always say
geography.
buy. Like, because if you ask me, like, oh, I would say buy, because let's be real. If you have the financial flexibility, even if you say, yo, I want to live in Long Island City for a year, and you can buy if you
Yeah.
want, right?
Mhm.
A year may be close because you got to factor in closing costs and things like that.
Mhm.
But if you could say, look, this is going to be short term. Like, I'm going to live here for a year, and then I'll rent for another 2, and then I'll sell in 4. Whatever. If you have
Yeah.
the financial ability to do it, I would always say buy. Now,
But the question is this: put yourself in this situation, right? Let's just utilize a $2 million mortgage apartment in one of these
Mhm.
neighborhoods.
studio at this point.
Mhm.
A studio,
Like a $2 million studio.
overlooking the water, and then you got your elevator takes in.
Yeah.
Perfect, great.
The
When you're looking
a
at a
bachelor pad.
$15,000 mortgage,
Mhm.
right? And you're looking to say, I'm gonna hold this for short term, 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
as opposed to me renting that same unit for $5,000.
Yeah. I mean,
That
that
extra-
math ain't mathing, but yeah.
But I'm just giving you an
Yeah,
all right. So let's say
considerably-
$6,500 bucks.
considerably less.
$6,500
Yeah.
bucks, right?
Right.
I have another 7 to 8 grand that I could play and utilize that money.
What are you going to do with it?
To save them.
And bro, right now,
You're going to buy something else probably.
yeah, I probably buy.
That's what I'm saying.
I might.
You're still going to
Hey,
buy.
No, I might. No, wait. I might not even go into a hardcore asset as real estate. I might go into the market. I
Look,
might go
it
into
depends-
Right.
it
other
depends.
levels of investment that I
100%.
might yield a better return.
A better return, right? Okay, 100%.
There you
That's a
go.
great point because, like, if you say over the course of 3 years, I'm looking at my my equity probably 1%, 2%, and then you could use that money and put it in marketing and
And
make
a
6 or 7%.
But also,
100%. That
but
makes
also
sense.
One of the things that
I agree with that.
One of the things that I've noticed as well is that when you're looking at all these nice units that have a lot of amenities, they don't really appreciate as much in value, right? As opposed to, like, let's say a home in the nice burbs as in a very good school district might appreciate at a faster rate on the longer term. These units pretty much stay
Why would that
stagnant
be the case?
because
well, I think because they're premium,
Yeah,
right? Because
they're
it's like
you look
buy
at a
low,
short-term
it's like
rental
buy
too.
low, sell high.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you're buying in the hood that's up and coming, right? Like if you bought in Williamsburg in the 90s, of course, because you know that's something. But that's a long-term play.
Yeah.
But if you're buying in Williamsburg
Yeah.
now, you'll be like, all right, bro, like you're squeezing.
That's it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there will be a return. Just that the rate of return will be a lot less and a lot slower.
But it's also
in a
interest-
more developed.
No, but it's also interesting to see that doesn't only play a big major role like in the States. It's also right now we know in DR and all these other
Right.
areas, right? Like in Greece and Italy, like the real estate development is just transitioning. So it's kind of like the same question: is buying maybe I rent here and I buy somewhere else, that's paradise, right?
Right.
So it could be, and then that paradise out overseas might be bringing me such a great return that I might be living like a king. I'm like,
And that's
F it.
another topic we could go into.
Because a lot of
Like
people are
moving-
doing that, bro. A lot of people
Not
are utilizing
moving,
that.
but like investing out of the U.S.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, if you think about it, look, if you have a couple of, let's say that if you find yourself a good opportunity to rent in a decent area, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna take this money, I'm gonna flip it over here, I'm gonna buy this asset over here, and I'm gonna rent it out there. I'm making money on something out there while I'm still living in a good area right here. So why not?
No, I mean, look, I you're right. It's not as like black and white like buy, but I still think when the question is posed, rent versus buying, and when you're putting it against a 30-year, I think buying, because I don't see a scenario like, I think those numbers are BS, because if you say, yeah, you're gonna save $900,000 in certain cities in California, or you're gonna save $150,000 in other major cities, you're not taking into consideration what we opened up with, right? Like you're not taking into consideration equity. You're not taking into consideration. Let me put it to you this way. We spoke about HELOCs the other day.
Yeah.
What if you are sitting in a property that you bought 5-10 years ago? Okay, yeah, you'll say, well, over the course of 10 years, I paid $5,000 as opposed to I could have paid $2,000 in rent in the same area. Let's call it, or $2,500 to make the math easy, 50% less, right? But then in 10 years, bro, you literally doubled your equity. In some areas in New York, you've doubled, and sometimes even more, right? And then you say, all right, so
And
this
it
asset
stays
was
with you.
$500,000, now it's $1 million. I could HELOC 70% of the total equity increase, right? So there's $500,000. I could take 70% of that. You could take that out.
Yeah.
If you're paying $2,500
You
in
can't
rent,
do
what are
that.
you gonna take out? What are you gonna take out?
But it depends what you're doing with your money, though.
Well, again,
You know what I
but
mean?
that's
Like,
what I'm
it
saying.
depends.
Those
No,
no,
numbers,
look.
those numbers are skewed, and on top
But
of that,
I think to Jonathan's
they're
point,
misleading.
I think to Jonathan's point, it all depends on your strategy. Like, am I going to be here long term?
100%.
Like,
No, 100%.
you know,
I'm saying
it-
like these numbers comparing them to 30-year mortgages.
So, all right.
I think
I'm
this
gonna
is a-
give you an.
hold
I'm
on,
gonna give you a
I think
different.
I
yeah.
think this is a perfect moment right now for Reynel to take charge and plug in La Fonfer Constructora Dominican Republic.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to fucking
Yeah.
That's it. We're gonna tell the producer. We're gonna send.
Yeah,
the
Jay,
logo.
Ray, what's La
click the link below.
Fonfer doing?
Click the link below. Click the link below.
What's
We talked
La
about
Fonfer-
I
the
was
link.
gonna wear the polo. And I
We
forgot
never
it.
put the links.
Yeah, but what's La Fonfer
If you
doing
want to
right now?
invest outside of the United States, call Jelly. All right,
I'm Jelly.
call Jelly.
Call Ray.
Ain't got you. And call Jay. And call Jay.
Jay got
Not
the
call me.
Jay has additional 5% discount.
Oh my god, yo! Now, all right. Oh, so look,
Because he don't get the commission.
getting
Who signed for that?
Yo, getting back to this topic about buying and renting. So I'm gonna tell you a story that someone told me, like it's like 15 or 20 years ago.
Damn, bro.
That
How
their
old are you?
parents, bro, I just turned 30.
Okay.
Their parents, yo, their parents decided to never buy a house. All right,
Mhm.
in the like
In the hood?
what's called East Williamsburg, which
What
was, the hood,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which was the hood 20 plus years ago, because they found it to not fit their lifestyle, because they will much rather they much rather value vacations with their families to build
Yeah.
memories,
Yeah.
right? It is important to also highlight that when you do purchasing a home, you add, that financial burden to your family as well. If you don't have,
Right. Like most people will, it'll
most
be a
people,
sacrifice.
exactly. So it'll be
Yeah,
a
sacrifice.
I agree.
sacrifice. Like
I
I
agree.
remember growing up, my parents being homeowners, like they probably went on vacation once every 5 years,
Mhm.
and here we got some major bad influences going on vacation like 10 times a year.
I feel like this generation is making us
Like, it's
effing
crazy.
soft, bro. Something's going on. Something's in the water. Because like when you spoke about
Something is
building wealth before, it used to be you build wealth through real estate, through ownership.
You
and
still do.
not
Long term.
not according to what we're talking about now.
Well,
Because the transferring of real assets, of real estate assets, is the number one wealth builder, like generational
agreed.
wealth
Yes.
builder,
Agreed.
right? Because your parents, let's say, made a sacrifice.
Mhm.
Yeah, we took a little less vacations, right? But also, you can make sound investments because you don't have to sacrifice in the time that you're spending, the valuable time you're spending with your family. You could sacrifice, all right, instead of a 2-family or a 3-family, let me get a 1-family. Or instead of a 4-bedroom, let me get a 3-bedroom. Those are sacrifices.
Or let me buy a multi and live in the basement.
Or
with
let
my
me buy a
family,
multi.
right?
Let me build it
Correct.
right. Because if I wanted to, so no judgment to whoever you were speaking about, but to say I don't want to buy this because I don't want a mortgage because I'd rather go out on vacation. Like there are other ways. Because then think
Yeah.
about 20 years later, 25 years later, 30 years later, when that mortgage is fully paid and your kids are sitting on $1 million, $2 million
In East Williamsburg.
in East Williamsburg, $2-3 million.
Yeah.
Right. And then how are they living? How are their kids gonna live? Right. We know somebody, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Like,
Set.
I mean, set, right? Like, so then,
Set.
so you got to also
But this is-
choose the sacrifices. That
I
you
think
make.
that look, our life path shows like pretty much tells us our history, right? It's kind of like you could start looking, and if you're somebody that is a visual person like myself, I'm like, I just got to see what that person has done over the trajectory of whether if I know them for 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Mhm.
And that's going to pretty much dictate where they are in life, right?
Yeah.
And what I've seen is a lot of the people that I look up to, they became homeowners,
Right.
right? And I think that part of that, it was they work hard. That was their main goal. Let me purchase a home for my family. They always did it for their family. Nobody wanted to rent. I mean, I honestly, renting wasn't cool when in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. It was not.
I mean, everybody that we
you
were
just,
around.
exactly, it
was
wasn't
renting.
cool to us.
But-
It's
but-
like yo,
But it
now-
was like, yo, we don't want to be.
yeah,
there.
we don't
Right,
want
right,
to.
right.
You know what I mean? Like now, if you were a homeowner, oh, you got money.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But
And then-
what
and
people
then-
don't realize that
and-
you really didn't have no money because
You were stretching the
strapped,
dollar, of
yeah.
course. Yeah, but fast forward 5 to 10 years
Now
of
they're
somebody who had a house, and then who in your circle say, oh shit, now he has a second
Yeah.
property.
Yep.
Now he has a
Yeah,
third
yeah,
property.
Yep.
Right? Like you can't have multiple properties and live off of real estate unless you start with one, right? Like that's
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
just
That's
number
how-
one.
Understand the business.
I
and
agree.
then-
There are circumstances, I believe, but I think most of them will fit into short term,
yes,
where renting makes most sense. Short term. If you're speaking long term, and I would even go as far as to saying anything over 5 years, if you can, right? Because obviously
Mhm.
circumstances, right? But if you can, I think it should be buying. And I think that is a very messed up thing to do to spread the rhetoric and put even that idea out there. Yo, renting is better than buying because you're literally. I think that's being done to keep people at a certain wealth level.
That's
I mean,
what-
I like how you
keep you in the mill.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what it
very
is.
true. But I like how you also pointed it out. Said you got to give yourself a specific timeline, right? So I'll give you an example. It's like if one of the twins is when they get to 21, 22 years old, you're like, yo, like you got to bounce. Let's just say that you're like, yo, you got to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
22
Enough
now.
is
Let's say it's
enough.
25. Let's say it's 25. And you're like, yeah, but he don't even know what's to pay the cable bill. I'm just giving an example, right?
Right.
How would you be like, all right, go and buy a house? Shouldn't you tell him, listen, rent for like 2-3 years so you can know more or less what it's like
No, but I
to
think
live on your own? Or perhaps you'd be like, you could put this money away and act like you're paying a mortgage. So
Right,
that way you
yeah.
transition. There's several different
Right,
options.
yeah.
I guess that's the way that we look at things now.
I think as a parent,
As a parent, you got to educate
you kinda
your
do
child
that
You-
to
want.
go through those
you know
things.
what
I mean, I think that what we had, and I'll speak to the Dominican culture because this happens a lot with Dominicans. The whole idea when they came back in the 70s and early 80s, the whole idea was like, come here and build back home.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, instead of taking that money and saying, you know what, let's.
But that still goes
That
on.
happened a lot.
Yeah, that still goes on though. You still have
no,
people
but
Not
that-
as much,
but not
yeah.
as much now.
Yeah.
Right.
Like back in the
Still
day,
happens, right?
so-
But not as much, right? Before it was like that was all. It was like the end all be all.
Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna be here for long. You
Yeah.
crazy?
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. I only came for like 10 years.
Yo brinco en Madón allá,
That's
güey. No, but yeah.
our job now with our kids is that is like, look, teaching them the ropes, and you know,
that's early.
You know, either if they want to take the decision or not, at least we inform them. You know, that
I think it has a lot to do with the generation. I think that a lot of, and I hate saying what I'm about to say, because like, you know, when you bunch people and you say like, oh, all these millennials, a lot of people say, or all these Gen Is, right? Like,
which one's Gen I again?
The ones after millennials.
Which ones? Oh, I just turned 30.
Bro, you're a baby boomer, bro. Like, but no, just like whatever. They're just the generations. Like, so, you know, a lot of people, they get bunched up and they say, oh, they don't want to work the 9 to 5s, or they don't want to do this, or they don't want to do that, right? Like, but I also feel like it's a lack of commitment in society now. Like, a mortgage is a commitment.
Yeah.
So I think that also plays into this whole rhetoric happening today. Like, oh, rent versus buy. You don't want to deal with a house. I know people, bro. I know people that say, I don't want to buy a house. And I'm like, why don't you want to buy a house? You crazy? I don't want to have to take the garbage out to the curb.
God. But you don't have to take the garbage out. You could pay somebody $30 a week and they'll take it out for you.
Yeah, but I'm saying like,
I'm just giving you entrepreneurial mindset, bro.
But I'm just saying like that. Those are like that. That's why you don't want to buy a house, right? But then it goes back to commitment, right? Yeah. Because a mortgage,
commitment issues.
You know, that's why a lot of people are not getting married, right? Like, or you know, it's just society's different.
Yeah,
society's different.
A little softer, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little softer.
It's crazy. No, I think that
there goes our 2 millennials.
the renting and the buying, man. Look, I think that if you have the finances,
thinking we need you.
If you have the finances to, like, if you could afford to buy, whether you go FHA or you go conventional,
that's another great point.
Like, it's kind of like, I mean, the government,
even
like,
if
the programs have become more accessible for people,
right?
Like, I don't know how long FHA has been around, but it's like
3.5%.
No, how long has it been around?
No, I know, but
ever since it was introduced, I think that it did give people the ability to step into that, right? Like, hey, look, you're gonna have a little PMI, like a little mortgage insurance, but eventually that's gonna go away, particularly with COVID and everything. Or like you mentioned, you know, all of the equity in the homes went up and stuff. So it was a great introductory program. But again, you mentioned it as well. I think the key is the commitment.
Right.
Are you willing to commit yourself to that sacrifice and say, you know what? Hey guys, listen, I can't go to the club this weekend because I can't blow the bag at Starlet's. I gotta pay this mortgage. You know what I mean?
And what is that Starlet's?
I
want to know.
All right. Anyways.
It's a diner.
No, it's an airline. It's better than Spirit.
I never heard of anybody blowing bands in an airline.
Bands will make a dance.
There you go. So I think we got to wrap up soon. But final thoughts. Or you guys?
I'm good. I mean, it's just like going back to that point in terms of home ownership. Ray did bring up a good point. Like, always have that mindset of buying, and you know, granted, you might your strategy might be short term to say, you know what, I need to live in Brooklyn because I'm doing an intern here for just 2-3 months.
Right.
That's a different strategy. But if you sacrifice now and say, you know what, I'm gonna put my hard work and effort into something that I say 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'm like, wow, look how far I've gone. Always bank on that. You know.
Yeah. You know who Jim Cramer is?
Of course.
Buy. That's what I'm going to say.
but Jim Cramer, that's a whole nother conversation because have you guys seen Quiver Quantics?
No.
It's this dude, right, on social media. And I mean, you never see him, but like it's a voiceover, but the dude seems like he's just super smart, right? But the way that he looks at buying stocks is like he'll create models that track the history of X, Y, or Z. He'll say, He'll look at what all people in powerful positions are doing, right? Like he'll look at all the senators, all the House reps, and he'll be like, "Oh, this person just bought a weird amount of shares in this company. What's going
on?
And that's a military company that provides military weapons. And that person sits on the military intelligence committee in the Senate. Let me do some digging, right? So that's how he does it, which is super dope. And he has a free website where you can follow all his.
That's not Roman Kitty, right?
But he has one on Kramer And basically,
Oh,
it's like do the opposite.
That's funny. Yeah.
So
I
he
remember that.
goes. So he has an index that says if I did the exact opposite of what Kramer did over the last
I would
5
be up
years,
by this-
I'd be up 70%. Like,
oh wow.
and he shows you, bro. Like he said to do this pick, this stock did
Yeah,
this.
I know.
Like and it's crazy. So bye. I don't
Bye,
know.
bye.
Not like Kramer. I think you really should buy it. But yeah, I think Jay brought up a point. I think there's an exception to every rule, but I think that we should question why the narrative right now
Being
is
set up the way it
is rent versus buy.
I agree.
And then you see all these huge corporations buying up single family homes.
Yo, not to bring this up, but it's crazy. Like I said earlier, I feel like we're trying. Unfortunately, I feel like the government's trying to condition us to think from a tenant mindset, right? And it's crazy. It's just crazy. I know that I gave my final thought already.
Your final thought. And the producer's like, "Yo, bro, that's it."
Hold up, but this we could probably talk about next week. It's funny because I was telling my wife, you see how inflation goes up every year and stuff?
Inflation,
right?
goes up.
It goes up.
Always.
Right? But you see how inflation goes up, right? Shouldn't your salary go and match whatever the inflation
That's
rate
a whole
goes
nother
up?
conversation. But
There
yeah,
you
you're
go.
right. And
It's
it
great,
doesn't.
right?
And it doesn't.
All right,
Yo,
guys, enough.
my people.
Enough.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
It's a wrap, baby. Catch
Feels
us
good to
next
be
week.
back. Feels good to be back.
I'm out.